It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome, welcome. It's the Jill on Money Show. This is the program that is trying to take the mystery out of your financial life. Yeah, even in August, the dog days of August, when Mark and I are both on vacation, we have a show that is chock full of great questions. You know how I know that? Because the questions come from you, and we are so lucky to have a community of listeners that really is so engaged, always sending us your questions and your thoughts, and we really do appreciate that. If there's something going on in your financial life, maybe you're getting ready to ship those kids off to college and maybe you're worried about that. Maybe you've got some plans for yourself that you want to think through. Maybe you just want another set of ears and eyes on your financial issues that lie ahead. Well, Mark and I would be delighted to help you out. You know, we're both certified financial planners and we love doing this. It's just so easy to do it. So here's what you need to know. Go to jillonmoney.com. That's our website. Bookmark it. And then if you've got a question, you can always hit the Contact Us button, and we would be delighted to chat with you. Today, we're starting the program with Will in Kentucky. Hi, Will. How can we help you out?
Yeah, well, I'm calling because my wife and I feel like we're in a healthy financial place. We think we're doing most of the right things. And so we're planning for what comes next after we achieve, these milestones that we hear about so often on your program. We both work long hours, and we know that that's not what we want to do forever.
What do you mean by long hours? Let's define that. When we say we work long hours, first of all, what do you guys do?
So my wife works for an energy technology company out of Texas. So she is remote here in Kentucky, and I work for a national education nonprofit. So we're both remote, which creates that added challenge of we're always in our office, because our home is our office, right? And so we do a pretty good job setting boundaries and having limits, but we still work long hours. And so my wife supports a global HR workforce, and so she'll have to take calls at 10 p.m., or at 6 a.m. And so that's what I mean by some days can be really long.
Right, because she's like always on call, and I have that also with my spouse. It's like, I got to do a call with Asia. So she's like on the phone at 8 o'clock at night, and you're like, oh, brother.
Exactly.
So how much do each of you make?
So we make about $320,000 a year.
That's got to go a long way in Kentucky.
It does. And we're very lucky and fortunate to be in the financial place that we're in.
How old are you, Will?
So I'm 38. My wife is 37.
Kids?
No kids and no plan for kids.
Ooh, this could make your desire to reduce your hours much more achievable. The $320 a year, do you guys max out your retirement accounts?
We do.
Okay. How much money is in each of your 401ks? Or do you have a 403b or 457?
I have a 401k now.
Okay.
But we have so total retirement savings is about $930,000. And of that, about $820,000 is in traditional 401ks.
Yep.
And about $110,000 is in Roth.
Got it. What about other savings do you have in emergency reserves? How much do you have? I presume you have emergency reserves.
We do, yeah. We have about $85,000 in our brokerage account that we treat as emergency reserve, and we add $1,000 a month to that. My goal is to get that up to about $120,000 and then do something else with that $1,000 a month. So we're a couple of years away from that.
But you have a brokerage account, but it's not invested is what you're saying.
It's invested in some low-risk funds.
Like what?
Oh, I would have to give you the stock symbols.
I mean, like you're investing, in other words, you have some stocks, but it's still, you're considering it your emergency reserve. Or are you telling me that the 85 is in money market and the extra money you're going to put in stuff?
Yes, the 85 is in different money markets. So it fluctuates with the market, but not as severely as the market swings.
I don't know why Mark, are you hearing what I'm hearing in this? The emergency reserve money is actually at risk?
Well, it is. I mean, I'm never a fan of that.
No, we're not fans of that, Will. I really like when you have an emergency reserve fund that is very boring. How much money do you guys spend in a year? Like, what's your actual expense number?
Probably close to $150,000.
You spend 150 grand a year?
I mean, we travel, we have nieces and nephews we like to spoil.
Wait a minute. Forget about that for a second. Hold on a second. I'm saying on this 320 grand a year, I'm not including your retirement. I'm not including big gifts to your nieces and nephews. Like, what does it cost for you to live your life? Put the travel in, but don't put in the gifts to the nieces and nephews.
Oh, that's probably like less than 100.
All right. So let's say 100, just because. All right. Mark and I are going to tell you to do something. I know you're not going to do it. So I'm just going to tell you to do it. You really should not have your 100. You should not have the money in the brokerage account that is your emergency reserve, like the actual 100 grand, the 6 or 12 months. So 50 to 100 grand should be in money market, should not be invested. Now I've said my piece. You're going to do what you want. Okay, let's move on. So we're going to get you to your 120. Any other money that's invested right now besides the 820 traditional, 110 Roth, 85 in the brokerage?
We've got a robo-advised fund that has about $66,000 in it. So that's where we've been throwing, extra cash each month. It's where we save. We like to buy cars with cash. So it's where we save to buy cars.
Okay. How about your house? Tell me about the living situation.
So we own, the house is worth probably about $450 in this market. We've got a 15-year loan for about $300,000 outstanding at 2.25%.
When you now look ahead, the goal, when do you want to try to reduce the hours? When do you really think in your mind is like, we can do this for so much longer? And then when is that time?
I think realistically, we can start to cut back at 50.
Okay.
Take a bigger step back at, 55 or 58.
Because you're in the nonprofit world, I'm just wondering, will you be entitled to any pension benefit?
No pension at all. Everything that we will receive is through our own retirement accounts.
Okay. So you got $1 million. Okay. And notice how I just got rid of your that brokerage account, how that went away for me. And you're saving a lot, right? You are saving in addition to your 401k. So that's 40. There's probably 50 or 60 grand a year that you're saving. Is that fair to say total?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you think that in this period of time that your incomes will rise precipitously or stay pretty much the same?
I think we have averaged between 7 and 10% increases, both because of natural increases and then also because of job changes. I think my wife has a lot more potential than I do, just given the sector she's in, and also because she's become a bit of an equity partner for her company.
I like a bit of an equity partner.
It's a big company, so I like to keep her in check.
We'll get back to our conversation with Will in just a moment. If you've got a question or you'd like to join us on the program, just go to the website, JillOnMoney.com, hit that Contact Us button, and we would love to arrange to have you join us. Okay, JillOnMoney.com, Jill on Money. Got it? It's all the words you need. We'll be right back.
401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and this is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life, or at least attempts to take the mystery out of your financial life, And it's not very difficult for us to take this outside look into your lives. I think what always is challenging is to do it yourself. And it's not because this is so difficult to do. It's just that all of the financial decisions we make and all the questions we have are laden with a lot of emotions. And we all have our emotional baggage. There's no doubt about it. It just plays itself out in so many different ways. And so I think that having these objective voices, when I say voices, I mean me and Mark, the people who are not so emotionally engaged with either a decision or an issue, it's so much easier for us. We can really sort of take a step back, ask you a lot of questions. You know, it's funny. It's sort of like being a psychologist, or a shrink or a social worker. It's like we're prompting you to ask questions. You probably know a lot of the answers already. I know you do. But we're just trying to steer you in a direction and listen to what you say. Now, that's one of the reasons that I love having you join us on the air, because there are times when you write things and they're really good questions, but I want to ask follow-up questions, and you'll hear me say that, oh, send us more information. But if you're on the air live with us, then we have all the information. That's why I like that. And I sometimes discover something that maybe you didn't even know. So now let's go back to chat with Will in Kentucky. Let's say that you're going to save 60 grand a year for the next 12 years. Okay? So that's just 720,000 right there. Okay? And then, you have the $1 million saved, so that will also increase, right? Presumably, I don't know how much time is left on your 15-year mortgage. Is that almost, when did you get that?
We did it last October, so we've got 14 years left.
Okay. So, you're pretty much on track. Like, even and weirdly, your expenses will go down around that same time. Mark, how much should we grow his $1 million at right now? What do you think?
Yeah, I just did it. I always use 6%, and it's roughly $3 million.
That he'll have $3 million.
Yeah, in 12 years, give or take.
It's a pretty good number. You feel good about that, Will?
Yeah, I like how you all do math.
Yeah, fast. So, obviously your expenses will go up because of inflation, but that's pretty good. What do you think when we talk about like at age 50, let's say 50 to 55, what's the step back? If you're making 320 now, what do you think happens at age 55?
I don't know about money, but I think time I would love to, decrease by a quarter to a third.
So would it be fair to say that you think even from 50 to 55 for you guys, I'm not going to say one or the other, should we reduce your income at that time by like from 320 in today's dollars to like half, 160?
Yeah, I think we wouldn't cut it that much, but I like that conservative approach for planning.
I think this plan is going to be a great plan for you guys. If you're willing to step back at age 50 to 55 and you have half as much income, the most important thing that I am considering in those 5 years is that you, A, have health insurance, which would be very good for you guys, right? B, that you may not save as much money. You don't have to be under the gun to have the $50,000 or $60,000 in savings, but maybe it would be half that. Maybe you'd still be able to, because essentially, by the time you're 55, you will not have a mortgage payment. You will be able to save some money. Do you envision being fully retired at 55?
I don't think so. I think it's hard for me to imagine a world where I'm not doing something even 10 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And it's also just nice to have that cash flow at that age as well, even if it's a small amount.
I'm just going to, again, come out of the closet and say, this is something that is not in my brain the way that I was brought up and the sort of like the system under which I had my work career. So I feel like I have always reacted against this. And now I'm really trying to embrace the fact that I think you guys are onto something. My generation and older might be a bit of idiots in that, oh, I have to work till I'm this, and this. I like the idea that you are creating all these opportunities for yourselves. You're saving a lot of money. You make a lot of money and you save a lot of money and you can indulge the nieces and nephews. But I'm really encouraged by this idea that you're saying, hey, you know what? Life shouldn't just be about, working 18 hours a day. And I need to embrace that a little bit more. And I'm learning that more and more from our audience. So I'm interested, Will, just to understand a little bit more about you and your wife. Do you have family that's around you guys? Is there any pushback? Have you shared this plan with others? And do you find that old farts like me, now into the second half of this decade of the 50s, do you find that we have outdated notions of work?
I think on one side of our family, absolutely. But on the other, they are fully retired at, 60 years old, and they travel whenever and wherever they want. And I think that's what we're aspiring for. We say to each other a lot, there's a lot of world to see, and we want to see it. But I do think, I'll never forget my dad lectured me once when I gave notice at a job I was leaving. It was a senior level position, and I gave 6 months notice that I was leaving. And he just could not believe that I would do that without a plan. And so we do get a little bit of questions, and then also a little bit of side eye. Like, even the work from home is like, people in our families who are older cock their head and be like, what do you mean you work from home? And so there's still some getting used to it, I think, in the family.
It's funny, Jill, because when I left CBS, same thing from my parents. They could not wrap their heads around the fact that I was leaving what they thought was this perfect job. They thought I was making a huge mistake.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think things have worked out pretty well.
That's so far so good for you, Mark. But, if I drop dead tomorrow, then you're going to have to go get a job again. So listen, I think this is a great game plan, Will. I really do. I think a lot of times when you guys are thinking about these things, having the freedom of saying, you know what, I want to know that I could do it. And oftentimes you get to that place, and just having that knowledge can make you work better. I think that employees are much better employees knowing they don't have to be there. I'm gung-ho on this. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about it. I hope you are, Will.
I am feeling good. I think the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause is all of our passive income generation is in the market. And even though it's diversified within the market, we do wonder, should we have some real estate holdings? Should we have other things that produce income outside of the market?
I feel like you're going to be very happy to have the liquidity. If all of a sudden you've got more money than we really think, that we're being so conservative that in 5 years you're like, you know what? We just stumbled upon this house. It's a great idea. Maybe we could do it. Sure. But I think it would not be my number one goal to pull the liquidity from the financial markets. I mean, you can get a lot of diversification in those financial markets. You can own REITs. You can own stocks. You can own bonds. You can own commodities or crypto or whatever you want. I mean, I know that everyone really digs this idea of like, oh, I want passive income. But, passive income requires you pulling money out of that portfolio and using up that precious liquidity, which is all the more important, especially if you're going to be cutting back and needing access to your money before age 59 and a half. And so, I mean, yeah, sure. If you stumbled upon something, if it's like, oh my God, it's 5 years from now and the real estate market cratered and you're sitting on top of cash and you're like, hey, you know what? We could just do this. Fine. But I wouldn't go nuts trying to do it. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, if you would like to join us on the air like Will, then all you need to do is go to the website, jillonmoney.com, and click the Contact Us button. Mark does all the rest. He's so good like that. Just remember to check off that little part of the form that says you'd be willing to come on the air. Okay, Jill on Money. We will be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are here answering your financial questions. Let's talk to Jamie from Colorado. Hello, Jamie. How are you? What can we do for you?
Oh, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate your help. So I am curious. I feel like I'm a pretty new listener to your show, and in listening to it, I thought I had a plan, and now I'm questioning the plan. So I would love your insights. I think we might be a little heavy on real estate, and I'm wondering if we need to kind of pivot and refocus on retirement savings instead.
Okay. So Jamie, you mentioned a we. So who's the partner spouse in this?
Yeah, my husband, and we also have a 7-year-old son.
Okay, got it. Jamie, how old are you?
I'm 42 and he is 48.
Do both you and your husband work?
Yes, I work for a municipality and my husband is self-employed. He's a carpenter.
Okay, so you work for a municipality. How much do you earn?
Around 80,000.
Okay, and you will be entitled to a pension, I presume?
Yes, yep, it's our state pension.
Great. Tell us about like the details of that.
Well, right now, you pay in a required amount, and if I stay until I'm 60, I'll probably get around 50% of my current salary, or actually, it's your highest 5-year average.
That's great.
Yeah, and if I stay longer till 65 or have more service years, it's going to be more like 60%.
Do you feel like you're a lifer? Do you feel like that's reasonable to assume that you will make it to at least 60?
I don't know. I really like my job, so that's the plan for now.
Dig it.
Yeah.
So in addition to your pension contribution, do you make a contribution to a 457 plan?
Well, so that's one of the things I have a question about is I had an option. They added a Roth 401k additional as well as a Roth 457 that was new this year. And I chose the Roth 401k to open and start doing it.
That's great.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Okay. I didn't know. I didn't really know the difference between the two.
Mark, go on.
No, I was just going to say she can actually you can actually do both if your cash flow allows. But if you can only do one, you pick the right one to do. That's fine.
Great. Okay. 401k Roth, you picked right. Husband, who's a carpenter, how much does he make?
It depends, but around 50.
And does he make any retirement contributions for himself?
So right now, both of us max out a Roth IRA every year. One of my questions is also whether we should open up a solo 401k for him. Right now, we don't have that.
You have the money to do all these things?
Well, we also have a rental property, and that helps add some additional income too.
Okay, so let's go first. Let's start first with the primary residence. Tell us about your home.
So we actually just refinanced about a year ago, and we have a 3.125% on a 30-year. And I'd say the house is probably worth about $625, $650 now in this market, and we owe $360 left.
And the mortgage is affordable. You're in good shape. Okay, now tell me about the rental.
So that's even a better market situation for us. We bought it during in 2011 on short sale. So the mortgage on it left is about $90,000, and I'd say that house is probably worth like $725, $750.
Oh my God!
So, right place, right time, and having a husband who can fix things.
Yeah.
That place would have a big fat for sale sign in front of it.
Yeah, I know it. Okay, so how much money do you have in your Roth IRAs right now?
Combined, we have, about 70,000 between the two of us.
Okay,
and
that's great.
I also have from previous employers some rollover IRAs, and I have 77 in those two. One of them's with TIAA, and the rest of our funds are all with Fidelity. And one of my questions is whether or not we should just also consolidate. But I've also heard you say good things about TIAA.
Yeah, I like TIAA. Any brokerage account or 529 account for the kiddo?
We do. We have about 16,000 in there right now from us, and there's an additional. The grandparents have set up their own, and they have about 16. So one of my questions, I think, is for us to right the ship, because I'm feeling a little behind on the retirement side of things, is if we should stop payments to that. I've also been paying extra on the house, which I know. Well, this is why I'm calling you.
No.
I know. Psychologically, I wanted to get to retirement with a paid for house. So one of my questions is, should we divert those funds into more retirement right now?
Okay. First of all, quick question for you. The rental property, tell me about the cash flow on that property. What is coming in every month?
Yeah, it's after expenses, it's around $2,000 profit for us. So it's pretty good cash flow.
And would you say that that $2,000 is really what represents your free cash flow? Meaning that, you know, if you look at your expenses, you're 80,000, his 50,000, you're putting money into your retirement, you're both putting money into Roth IRAs. Is that pretty much it for you guys? Or do you feel like are you kind of maxed out on what you could use your current income to fund, forgetting about the real estate?
I would say that I would be, we've been paying about $400 extra on the house, and we do $200 for the 529. So what I elected in our open enrollment was to do $400 for my Roth 401k moving forward. And I was thinking I would just stop the house payments and do that.
Great.
So we have a little bit of extra, and that's what I was thinking we could use towards a solo 401k potentially.
It's interesting. So right now, I mean, you don't necessarily have to do the solo. Even though you're just enrolled in this plan, you can increase your percentage at any time, can't you?
I think so.
So instead of like the expense of starting a solo 401k, what you could simply do is instead of saying $400 a month, you can put even more than that into your Roth 401k. You really could, right? Because you've got the cash flow from the rental property. You could max out the 401k. I mean, you could essentially put $20,500 in there.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
That's
You scared?
Yeah.
I scared. All right, we'll get back to Jamie in just a second. During the break, hop on over to JillOnMoney.com and bookmark it.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are here answering questions. We'll get back to our conversation with Jamie from Colorado in just a second. Just want to remind you about a few cool things that are on our website. First of all, it looks so great, and I can say that because I had nothing to do with it. Mark did the whole revamp, and it really just, every time I go to it, I'm so happy. But most importantly, we refresh that content all the time. So it's not just this radio show, but it's also, we have 2 podcasts. And the podcasts that we air, one is called Jill on Money, and it comes out daily. The other is called Eye on Money. That comes out twice a week. And Eye on Money, interestingly enough, features Mark. Mark is the co-host with me. So you should really check it out. You can subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, or just go to the website, JillOnMoney.com, and we've got links there. Okay, now, all right, did some business. Let's get back to Jamie. Do you have an emergency reserve fund?
We do. We have $40,000 that we've kind of kept for our savings, and then we've also saved up another $40,000 for a potential new car. But there's no new cars to buy, so
that's right. So you'll drive your car into the ground.
Exactly.
Very good. Mark, do you want to weigh in here?
Man,
I know what you want to do.
Yeah, I want to do that like yesterday. That's a huge chunk of money.
So Mark is what he's talking about. He's salivating over your equity that's sitting in that rental property.
You know, she feels behind right now in retirement savings. That would eliminate all of those feelings.
Would you sell this property or not?
I don't think we're there, just because it's so light maintenance for us. And we're even willing to, you know, as we get closer to retirement, you know, we could move back into that house for a couple of years to help alleviate a little bit of the capital gains. So we kind of want to keep it for now.
Okay, that's fine. As also, like, you know, it's there. So that's the other thing, right? So what I think, you've got the emergency reserve, you got your car fund. Is there anything else on the horizon that we need to worry about?
Nope.
Okay. So I think this is actually easy. So right now, you're putting the $200 a month into the 529 and the $400 in extra mortgage payment. You're going to get rid of that extra mortgage payment. And now that goes into your 401k, your Roth, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the next question is, with this extra $2,000 a month, what you would be willing to put into your retirement account. And I am suggesting that you essentially, it's easier to do it through your plan. Where is the 401k held?
I don't know yet because I just signed up, but it's through related to the pension fund. They're the overseers of it.
The overlords.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, what I would say is this. You know that you have essentially all this free cash flow. You know that you want to increase your retirement savings. I mean, you could, if you wanted to, do a solo 401k for your husband, but you have a plan that exists, and I would use it. Okay. And it would mean that of the, let's say, $2,000 a month that's coming in from that real estate, you would take about $1,300 of that and you would put that into your 401k, and you could use the other $700 if you want. Again, this is totally up to you. And you could maybe even put it in the 529 plan. You don't have to stop doing the 529 plan. You could do both, because essentially for your retirement, if we had you putting in 2,500 and you're both maxing out your Roths, right? We have you putting in 32 grand a year into retirement. That seems awesome to me.
Yeah, that's great. And that's better to do my plan than to possibly have a tax deduction through him as a self-employed person.
I mean, you don't make that much money together. You're not in a high tax bracket. I mean, you have money from the rental property that adds to the process, but like if you really think about it, you make 130 plus another 25. So you're solidly in the 22% tax bracket as your highest bracket. I don't see the need to do a pre-tax plan. You're going to have taxable income when you retire because you're going to have your pension.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we're going to make him work for a while.
Yeah, I think my ideal would be, since he's a little older, he's willing to keep going for a while, and I would maybe get to retire a little early. We'll see.
That's very funny. So you might think of it the other way. He's older. He gets to retire. He's in the physical job. You're a dilettante in a municipality eating bonbons and collecting your pension already. I mean, I forget him. I'm only kidding you. You know what? I think you guys are in good shape. I think that capturing some of this money and really jamming it into that retirement account is going to be really worthwhile for you. And as you said, you do have the sort of the solace and the knowledge that you have this huge chunk of equity in your rental property. You have equity in your current home, but the reality is that you're not going to probably end up with two homes. You're going to probably consolidate, be in one home. So there will be even more money for retirement. If something weird happened, like God forbid, if your husband blew out his back and he can't be a carpenter anymore and you lost that income, you might say, well, maybe we would sell one of these properties. So you've got, just know that real estate is there for you. And if for some reason you need the liquidity, don't be afraid to tap it. It's there for you.
Okay. Yeah, that is a great point.
All right. We are going to finish up with Jamie in just a moment. During the break, hop on over to Jill on Money. There it is for you. And go sign up for our free weekly newsletter. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money, and let's wrap it up with Jamie from Colorado.
I am just curious about, I've heard a lot of people that I work with as they get close to retirement potentially are buying service years. And I'm just wondering with some of our extra cash that we've saved up now, if it might be worth considering buying an extra service here.
Yeah.
It's cheaper when you're younger and when you make less.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to know what the actual dollar amount is, but that's usually a very good deal for the person who has the cash that's available. If you said to me, for example, instead of putting the $200 a month from the 529 plus, I'm saying to you maybe another 700, right? Instead of doing that, we'll start accumulating more cash and buy in more years. Sure, that you could do that, but you have to be sure you're sticking around there.
Yeah, I guess that is the variable.
Right. So you just have to make that decision.
Okay.
And maybe you don't have to make it today. You could start, you might say, all right, you know what? I'm going to keep the $200 that's going into the 529. It's fine. I'll just do that. It's easy. And then maybe what you say is the extra $700 in rent, we're just going to build it up. We're going to, keep building that up. And in a year from now, maybe I'll have more information. And, you have to do it when you feel comfortable doing it. I don't want to push that as because your numbers look good right now. Putting your money to work in retirement and getting this money into your 401k is really good. I don't want to go nutty with going out and buying years back unless you feel really confident that you're staying around.
Okay, that makes sense. And I put pretty much everything in our Roth IRA into a target fund. I don't know if they're too expensive. It's a 0.75 expense ratio. Is that?
Yeah, you don't need to do that actually. So which target date fund? At Fidelity?
Fidelity 2040.
You know what you can do? You can do the S&P 500 index.
Okay.
You can do the Fidelity Intermediate Term Bond Index. Right now, it's probably based on your age, 80% in stocks and 20% in bonds. And you can make that be your allocation. Okay, if you'd like to come on the air like Jamie and talk some things through, just go to JillOnMoney.com and click the Contact Us button. Mark does all the rest. Fabulous. A whole nother hour lies around the corner. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's hour number 2 of Jill on Money, and we are here to try to take the next best financial steps for you or with you and your family. And I always like to think that there are a million different people who give financial advice out there. Some of them get paid. Some of them are hawking their books. Not that that's beneath me, because I'd be happy to hawk my book. What Mark and I really think is the real difference of our program is that we do make you the focus, and we hopefully do that without judgment. And I think this is extremely important because we already judge ourselves about money. I know you do. We all do. That is sort of human nature. But if you've got questions and you're sitting in judgment of yourself, it's hard to get you to the next best place. So in order to do that, maybe it's time for you to stop being so judgmental and stop being so fearful or stop being so greedy, whatever it is that's standing in your way, and contact us. Go to JillOnMoney.com and click the Contact Us button. Very easy to do. That is what Jim from Connecticut did. Welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so appreciative of you guys taking my call. This is great.
Well, listen, if we didn't start talking to you, you would hear more and more nonsense that we would. And believe me when I tell you, Mark and I can fritter away a lot of time talking about nonsense. So, Jim, what brings you to our airwaves today?
The background is I spent too much of my working career being an excellent saver, I think, but being far too conservative in my investment approach. And since listening to you guys for the last few years, I've learned so much that I want to pass on to my daughter so that she doesn't end up missing out on opportunities that I missed out over the years.
I feel the same way about myself. It's funny you should say that about when you say you're an excellent saver, but not like you don't like risk so much. I feel the exact same way about myself. That's funny you say that. Someone just asked me that question, like, what's the best and the worst? And I was like, you know what? I don't like risk. So what is it that caused you to be an excellent saver, but maybe a little bit too conservative of an investor?
Well, I think that's just coming from my parents who are, Depression area folks, save, save, save. And, my wife and I were excellent savers. And I shouldn't even blame it on her. I was far too risk averse and had some very, very conservative investments that, for what they were, they did okay. But
you could have had a lot more money at this point.
I could have. And I don't want my children, and particularly my daughter, who's, a teacher, which they have limited opportunities. I want her to take advantage as much as possible over the next, 25 or 30 years while she's still working.
Yeah, it's interesting how we do pass along some of our habits to our kids. And so, like you said, you get it from your parents. I was a reaction against my own father, who was a trader, but who went broke 3 different times in his career. So that definitely informed me. So what can we do for your daughter? Let's talk a little bit about who she is, what she's doing, and how we can help her out.
Okay, great. Yeah, so she's 33 years old, and she's been teaching for about 12 years. Her only retirement account option, like most teachers, is a 403B, and there's no match for that. For the last several years, when she first got introduced to it, and this is before I had really any experience with 403Bs, she listened to the person that came to their school and gave her a moderate allocation with Equitable. And it took us far too long to realize the extent of the fees that are associated with that particular 403B and with many 403Bs. Mm-hmm. About a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, their school district, Fidelity became one of the 403B providers, their net benefits plan, Fidelity's net benefits. She is unable at this point. She needs a few more years, 2 or 3 more years before she can roll over her current balance at Equitable to Fidelity, which she plans to do.
Good.
But she changed her investment with her current balance to their lowest fee investment fund, which fortunately is an S&P 500. But their lowest fee is 0.6 or just about 0.6, 0.58, as opposed to 0.03 when she's in her own, Roth IRA, with Fidelity, so it's, 20 times higher.
When you put it that way, it's really startling, I have to be honest. How much is she putting into that 403B right now? What's her contribution level?
She's contributing 10% of her salary, which is about $7,500 a year.
She makes $75,000 about?
Yes.
Okay. And then what's her contribution into the pension? Don't they have a mandatory pension?
Yeah, she contributes 11% is a mandatory contribution rate, which is just over $8,000 this year.
Okay, that's good. How much money is in that Equitable 403B right now?
The Equitable is, I think it's about $50,000.
That's great. Is she married or single?
She's single.
Okay, and no kids, right?
No kids yet. No, neither at this point.
Just to put another fine point on this, since it sounds like you've done the research, it sounds like you're an engineer, but I don't know what you do. But I'm just totally guessing because you're very specific.
It's funny you should say that because I was an engineer for half of my career anyway.
Hey, Mark, do you know what this is? This I do, and you know how they say racial profiling? I do financial profiling. I'm going to be taken away. Okay, so the thing that's funny about that, Jim, is that I bet what is the mortality and expense fee associated with the Equitable. And everyone listening, the reason why I'm talking about this is that what Jim just said was for the S&P 500 fund inside of this Equitable contract, which is probably a variable annuity that's subsumed under the 403B umbrella. So it's 0.6% for the index fund, but then there's a fee for the contract itself. And that fee is usually called an M&E, mortality and expense fee or ratio. What is it for the Equitable?
1.2.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Crazy.
So you have to pay that no matter what. This is why so many of these contracts are really stinky, because what you do is you start with something like this. You say, okay, there's a fee to be in these plans. It's usually about 1%, whether it's a big company or small company. So it's 401k, 403b. There's usually like a 1% charge in general. But now this is 1.2%. So you add that, then you've got these sub-account fees on top of it, which are higher. And now all of a sudden you're paying, an extra 1 or 1.2 or sometimes 1.5% more than you would have if you just had the mutual fund platform from which to choose. And it sounds like nothing, 1% big deal, except that when you start to make a lot of money and have a lot of money in the account, and $50,000 times 1%, like I bet your daughter would like to have that 1% back. Exactly. Hence the desire to move into Fidelity. We'll get back to Jim in just a second. If you've got a financial question for either you or a family member, all you need to do is go to JillOnMoney.com. That's our website, and click the Contact Us button. While you're there, you might want to check out all the neat stuff that we do. Podcasts, blogs, TV, it's all there. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are here answering your financial questions. The way that we get you to actually ask us your questions is really a small ask. We ask that you go to our website, JillOnMoney.com. And while you're there, you might as well bookmark it. The reason why we want you to bookmark it is that who knows when a financial question is going to crop up in your life. And if it's bookmarked either on your phone or on your desktop or on your iPad, then anytime some sort of financial issue arises, all you need to do is click the Contact Us button. Of course, the vast majority of you are just listening and having fun. But more and more, we're hearing from so many people. And it's great. You can just send us a note and we'll read them on the air every so often. But we love having you live, because the live experience is one that helps us have a conversation with you and also ask a bunch of follow-up questions. And you'll find that we can often develop a game plan on the fly when we have you on the air with us. And that's the great benefit of it. So again, JillOnMoney.com, contact us. Let's get back to Jim from Connecticut. Tell me, what is the actual question? Because it sounds like you've identified the problem, which is you're going to get out of the Equitable. She's putting money into Fidelity. So what else can we do for her?
There's really two ultimate questions. Is there a point at which a 403b's plan's fees are too high, and then maybe she should just go into a brokerage account? And given all we've talked about, is she on pace for a good retirement between the mandatory pension, the 403b, and she does max out her individual Roth IRA each year?
I mean, just to put this in perspective, she's putting $20,000 a year into retirement on a $75,000 salary. She's kicking ass.
Yeah, when you look at it like that, yeah.
I mean, she's kicking ass. Where does she live? Does she rent?
No, she owns her own home.
What? How is she single? My God, maybe she wants to be single, but my God, this is something else. What's her house worth?
It's about $275 now.
Mm-hmm. And what's the outstanding mortgage balance?
$193. She just refinanced at 2.78 for 20 years. So she's got 19 years left on that.
Do you think she's a lifer as a teacher? Like she's going to hang in there to get the pension and everything's going to be hunky-dory?
I think that's the plan now. I tell you, these last couple of years have been really tough. And it makes you, when you start looking at, I got 20 more years to go, that's a hard hill to climb. But I do think so.
All right. So when you move to the Fidelity plan, can she now contribute to the Fidelity plan, the 403b right now?
Yes. She's been doing that for the last few months.
Is there a Roth option of the 403b?
They just announced a month ago that they have a 457 and a Roth option, but those are with Mass Mutual. And I was reading the prospectus, and it's a whole nother gobbledygook of fees and everything. So I was like, let's hold off on that.
Do you think she lives okay putting this 20 grand of her 75 away? I mean, does she feel comfortable? Does she feel like she's struggling?
Not struggling. There's not a lot to spare, but she's got a good cash flow.
Okay. And she's got an emergency reserve fund. I mean, I know teachers don't usually, they're not like, certainly she has tenure. So I presume she's not at huge risk, but you never know. So does she have an emergency reserve?
Yeah, she's got about 3, maybe 4 months worth of emergency fund.
Okay. And there is no brokerage account so far, right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there is. She's just $2,500 in a non-retirement brokerage. She throws a few hundred here and there into it. And then, and then the Roth, which is just straight with Fidelity.
And is the taxable account also with Fidelity?
Yes.
All right. Mark, should Jim's daughter pull back on her 403b and just put money in her taxable? Like, what's your theory on this, Mark? Weigh in.
So just to be clear, she's now using the Fidelity 403b?
Yes. And just for difference, that same S&P 500 with Fidelity is now 0.015. Even with Fidelity, there's not a whole lot of choices as opposed to being in a brokerage account.
Yeah.
And most of the fees are are higher than you see in a brokerage account, but at least the big one like an S&P 500 is cheap.
So she's got the Roth, and there's no match, so there's really no incentive to use it. And there's no Roth option, so it's not like she's using it for that. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards building up a brokerage account.
That's what I'm thinking also. And we're not usually like this. I mean, we usually like the idea of using a retirement account when it's available. But, she's in a very low tax bracket right now. Does she also live in Connecticut, just out of curiosity?
No, she lives in Massachusetts.
Okay, so she lives in Massachusetts. The state tax is not so bad there, but she's in the 22% tax bracket. It's not like she's going down to the 12. She's got a good deduction. She has her home mortgage interest. She gets her, her taxes. I think that considering she's going to have a pension, I would agree that it might make more sense to, I don't know, like I sort of feel like she couldn't start to fund. I'd like to build up the taxable account. Maybe instead of her putting 10% into the Fidelity, is there any advantage, Mark, for her to keep some money going into that account, or should she just forget it and put all of the money into a brokerage account?
I'm trying to find a reason to keep using it. I mean, other than, if she's worried about some sort of creditor protection, but I don't think that's the case. So I don't really see a reason to have to use it.
If they were to introduce, and maybe they will in the future, a Roth option, would that?
Yeah, that would change my mind.
Yeah, me too. That's exactly right. But she's doing her own Roth. And how much money's in her Roth right now?
$13,000.
I mean, she's going to build up her Roth. I wouldn't mind her building up that account, that brokerage account. I agree. There's not a huge reason to go ahead and use it. The fees are going to be lower just to have a brokerage account option, actually. By the way, everyone listening, this is advice for Jim's daughter, not you. Because for most people, first of all, it's very hard to have the discipline to put the money into the brokerage account and not spend it. It does not sound like she's a big spender. The only reason to use the retirement account is that it's done so seamlessly. They take the money out. It's not a big deal. If she feels weird about this, then just tell her to go split it. 5% she can keep putting into the retirement account and put the rest of the money in the taxable account. But I like the idea that the money that is going into the taxable account, she can build it up. It may be something that we would change our minds about if tax law changed. But she's in a very low, she just doesn't have a big tax liability right now.
Right.
And she's doing everything she should. I wouldn't mind her having a little liquidity, especially because, I don't know how long she's going to teach, but maybe it's 20 more years. and she'd have 30 years into the system. I'm sure they max out at 30 or 35 years on the pension.
Right.
Maybe she's going to want to do something else at that time, and she'll want to have a pot of money that has already been taxed. And that's what the taxable account would do.
Okay, that makes sense.
This all sounds good. You're a very good father. Is there anything about your financial life we should know about?
I do have one quick question, and it's more just validation. I retired 4 years ago, and my wife is retiring next year. Most of our savings is in, retirement accounts, and I'm planning to do some Roth conversions over the next few years, especially when she retires, before we start collecting Social Security, to try to reduce the RMDs and increase the Roth. And I do have the cash available to pay the taxes. And I know you've talked about it many times before, but that sound like a logical approach to it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is Mark can give you the pat on the back for that.
I was just looking for my bell to ring. Oh, wait.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Then otherwise, I think I'm all set.
Okay, we're going to get back to more of your financial questions during the break. How about going to JillOnMoney.com and sign up for the free weekly newsletter? Mark puts it together every single Friday, and it's fantastic. JillOnMoney.com, the weekly newsletter. Okay, we'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And through the miracle of technology, even though Mark and I are taking our summer break, even though we are really, hopefully, somewhere fantastic, God knows where, but we might be somewhere great, we have this show for you. And that technology is also the technology that allows us to bring you on the program with us and talk through your financial issues. I think it's so great because I think it's a much more enriching experience for you as the person who has the question. It's really great for me and Mark because we can ask follow-up questions. And I think it's kind of cool for the community because we're all voyeurs. You know we are. So if you've got a financial question, we encourage you to go to the website, JillOnMoney.com. Click the Contact Us button. A form will appear. You can complete the form. At the end of that form, there's a little box. It says, would you be willing to come on the air with us live? If you check it, then Mark does everything else. And he even kind of walks you through some of the technological issues that could arise. They really don't usually, but I think it's a great experience, so I really encourage you to do it. Right now, we are going to talk to Jasmine from New Jersey. She is asking a question about Roths, and gosh, we get so many Roth questions. Hi, Jasmine. What can we do for you?
Yeah, so thanks so much for taking my call. I love your show. I do a lot of running and walking, especially with a 1-year-old, and listen to it every day. So thank you. The question I have today is, and you're probably going to get a lot of flack from people who say, you get a lot of high earners or a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me how rich you are.
Wasn't always this way, but thankfully now we are. But one question I have, and I know you get this question a lot, but should we be putting all of our retirement contributions in the Roth 401ks, or should we be doing any pre-tax contributions?
Okay. So Roth or traditional is one category. Let me go back in time for a second.
Sure.
Let's talk about, you've got one child who's 1 year old, right?
Yep. And I have a 4-year-old as well.
And you have a 4-year-old. Oh, boy. Okay. And you're married. How much did you guys make, you big fat 1%ers?
We make about $370,000 gross annually together. And then I get about $30,000 to $40,000 in annual bonuses every year.
All right. So $400,000. By the way, you're not in quite as good shape as the the callers from last week, because we had a couple in Kentucky that makes 320.
Wow.
So, you're in New Jersey. So you're basically middle class for northern New Jersey.
Yes, the money goes fast.
Just remember what Mrs. Schlesinger likes to say. Rich or poor, it's nice to have money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 400 grand, that's a good living, which is great. You're in a high tax state, though, right? So New Jersey, you're kind of getting a little bit hammered. How old are you guys?
So I'm 39 and my husband's 36.
Tell us about what you're doing right now for retirement. Are you using a traditional or are you using a Roth?
So we're 100% in Roth 401k.
How about a house? Do you have a house?
Yeah, so we have a house. We recently refinanced to a 2.8 interest rate. We have about $410,000 left on the loan, and the home is worth around $600,000.
Nice. And the 2.8, 30 year or 15?
A 30-year.
Okay, good. No extra payments on that. How about saving for kids' college?
So we have 2 529 accounts for each of our kids. For the 4-year-old, so we do about 500 in each in their accounts monthly. Mm-hmm. So we have about 23,000 in the 4-year-old's account, and then the 1-year-old has about 4,200 in his account.
Great. And let's talk about retirement accounts, like how much is in there, and you guys are both maxing, right?
Yes, that's correct. So we max out every year. We have about 650,000 total in retirement. Mm-hmm. Most of it's in pre-tax accounts. Mm-hmm. So about 85,000 is in a Roth, either like a Roth rollover account or just a Roth that I had started many years ago when I wasn't making as much.
Great. And you guys have a nice emergency reserve fund. You have a nice a buffer for yourselves?
Yeah, so we have about 110,000 in cash in a high yield savings account. We do also have like a taxable brokerage account. It has about 111,000 in it right now, and we contribute about 1,000 to 1,500 in it every month.
Holy smokes! So you're putting 1,000 a month into education, 1,000 a month into brokerage.
Yes.
And also, obviously, you're maxing out. That's great. You're cranking. This is fantastic. Any other debt, any school loans or anything going on there?
No, actually. So last year I had emailed you and you'd answered the question, but we had about like 39,000 in student loans and you had suggested we just pay it off. So I used a bonus to pay it off.
I love that. Okay. And so cash flow's good. You still have, so you've got maxing out the 401k, $529, $1,000, brokerage $1,000. What else is going on out there? Anything else that we need to know about?
No, I mean, we don't have any car payments, so we pay cash for our cars, and we do have high expenses for daycare.
How's that? How much is that?
It's about $2,700 a month for the two of them. So.
Mark, how you feeling about that?
Well, that's not a surprise to me, but people listening to this in the middle of the country probably just had a heart attack.
They're like, wait, that's my mortgage. But that's what it costs, right?
Yeah.
Are you in a good school district? Are you going to be able to send the kids to public school?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So next September, my daughter will go to kindergarten. So maybe a little less than half of that bill will be out.
Thank freaking God, right?
Yeah.
We'll get back to Jasmine in just a second during the break. Again, I'm going to tell you over and over, just go to JillOnMoney.com. Bookmark it. It's so easy to do. And we will be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are trying to take the mystery out of your financial life. We're trying to help you make better financial decisions, or maybe not even better. Maybe you're in great financial shape. Sometimes you guys come to us and we're shocked because we feel like you're in such good shape. Why are you coming to us? But I know we're all a little insecure about our money, and I get that. So if you've got questions, whether you have a lot of money, a medium-sized amount of money, a little money, you got problems, we're here to help you out. Mark and I are both certified financial planners, and so we have a holistic approach to you and your money. Right now, we are going to continue our conversation with Jasmine from New Jersey. So do you guys have life insurance?
Yeah, we do. So we have about $2 million each. So half of that is in like a separate account that we got through Policy Genius, and the other half is through our jobs.
Great. And estate documents?
Yes, we do.
So Yaz is really the question about Roth versus traditional, right?
Yes.
Mark?
Are we doing the right thing?
Mark?
As I like to say, all Roth all the time, and you've already got a very large chunk that's pretty much all pre-tax. So I think you're definitely going to want to be doing a Roth.
Yeah, I think so too. And what's interesting is, I mean, I think that you have this sense that one would have the sense like, oh my God, it's $400,000. We have our top bracket is 32%. But most of your money, the bulk of your earnings is being taxed at the 24% rate. Yes, the very tippy top, yes, is at that 32, but you're really more in the 30 and the 24. So I agree with Mark, especially since so much of your money is already in your retirement money is in the traditional. Mark, what about when we've got an extra $1,000 that is freed up next year after kindergarten? Should it go in the 529 or the brokerage? What's your recommendation, sir?
Per child, $600 is a good number. $600 each child per month. So they can divert maybe, a couple $100 to that and jack that up a little bit. And then I would put the rest in the brokerage.
Yeah, me too. Where is the brokerage account?
Schwab.
And you're just using index funds?
Yeah, like index funds or like the ETF, the total market ETFs that they have. But yeah, low cost funds.
I mean, you are in such good shape. You really are. You know what's weird? Tell me about how you feel, because you live in a high cost area, but you also live around rich people. Does it make you feel like, oh, we're not doing well? Or do you feel okay about your position?
I feel okay. I've always been a saver. So, I think both my husband and I, we didn't come from money. And so we saw the struggles there. And when I was young, my first job out of college, I was making $24,000 a year. Living in Washington, D.C.
Dude, look at you.
Food stamps.
And look at you now. Your bonus is freaking $30,000. Isn't it like weird? Do you pinch yourself sometimes? It's kind of amazing, right?
It's crazy. And we really like our jobs and we work for really nice employers. So, I mean, like my employer hired me when I was pregnant. So like, they're just amazing. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, but I'm always afraid that something could happen and something will happen in the future. And so,
I understand.
Save.
I feel quite pleased about this. I think, yes, it's good to hear that you say I never thought I'd be in this place. It's also great to know hey, I'm in this place, so I don't want to squander it.
I do have one other question. So, my husband's an only child, and I know that at some point financially we're going to have to support his parents. And I love them. And, just wondering, trying to save as much as possible, just in case. But, what are some things that we should be doing? Like now they have a will and everything because, we made sure that happened. But I just want to, is there anything that we should be doing to, sort of prepare? They're young, they're 60, but in 10, 15 years.
They're still working, right?
Yeah, so my father-in-law still works and my mother-in-law is disabled. So she doesn't. Yeah.
You know, I think that the most important thing that you can do as supportive kids is to, you know, make sure they're making good choices along the way. So it sounds like you did that with the estate planning. When your father-in-law is ready to think about retiring, obviously the idea around when to claim Social Security, you know, encourage him to wait as long as he can until his full retirement age, because that will give them more money, you know, over the course of their retirement. And then from your perspective as the kids, I would say the most important thing you can do is build up that brokerage account. So again, you know, in the next 5 years, your whole scenario is going to change because all that money from the daycare, which, you know, not all of it because you'll have babysitters and stuff, but let's say you had in today's dollars, an extra $2,000 a month. At that time, you're going to build up some of your 529, but the brokerage account is really where you want to have access to money that's already been taxed to help your in-laws. That's what I think is important.
Okay, good.
Okay, if you would like to come on the program with us, all you need to do is go to the website, jillonmoney.com. Click the Contact Us button, ask your question, and be sure to check the box that says you'd like to come on the air. While you're there, why don't you sign up for the free weekly newsletter and subscribe to a couple of podcasts? You'll love them. I promise. You really will. Okay, it's Jill on Money, and we will be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. And before we close out for the day, we like to answer a question, sometimes two, at the very end of the show. If you've got a financial question, don't forget it's jillonmoney.com. That is the website. Chris writes, I find your show very interesting and continue to learn helpful tidbits every time I listen. I have a quick question. I often hear you talk about Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard as the go-to brokerage companies. I've invested with E-Trade for years, and I'm wondering if there is something I should be aware of that makes you shy away from their usage. The recent purchase of E-Trade by Morgan Stanley has given me pause. I wonder if I should seek another company. Any words of wisdom or caution would be appreciated. You know what? You're right. I hadn't really talked about E-Trade so much because it usually was more of a trading platform, but it's a very good company. There is, at this moment, no reason to be fearful that Morgan Stanley has acquired E-Trade because it's being left alone as kind of like a standalone, no load, no commission brokerage house. But if they do start to levy the fees, which they can often do when it's a big wirehouse, then there are so many other options. But I don't think you need to do anything right now. I am very much encouraged by the fact that all brokerage firms are understanding that there are tons of people who just want to do their own investing. They want to take care of their business themselves. They don't need high fees to do that. And that's a really great development. So yeah, you can stay at E-Trade. Don't worry about it. It's just fine. All right, that is it. That is the program. Everything that we do, all of our content lives on our website, jillonmoney.com. We've got our Contact Us button where you can ask your questions. You can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. It's great. And you can also subscribe to our other programs. That's the Jill on Money and the Eye on Money podcast. All of that on the website. All right, our music is composed by Joel Goodman. Mark Talercio is our executive producer. Put your hands metaphorically on someone's back. Someone needs that, I promise you. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.